mean? And we gotta keep it hype. Keep it hype. Represent it for life. You know how we do it. Woo! Hey. Jacksonville Jags. We don't mean to brag, but when we on the field, we got it in the bag. Jacksonville Jags. You know how we ball. Best believe it. Got the people screaming out, Duval. Jacksonville Jags. We don't mean to brag, but when we on the field, we got it in the bag. Jacksonville Jags. You know how we ball. Best believe it. Got the people screaming out, Duval. Okay, Jacksonville Jaguars. Too much for your crew to handle.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Club Jaguar. We are up here. We are rolling. We are 2 preseason games down, and we are less than 3 weeks away from the Jaguars season opener against the Miami Dolphins. And just to let you guys know, Club Jaguar, this stream is powered by BetUS. About halfway through the show, we're going to get in through all different kinds of lines for you guys to look at and enjoy, and we'll give it a little bit of analysis to go along with it. But with that said, I do have some co-hosts with me. I have fresh out of the Club Jaguar substance abuse program. We have Jason from Jaguars Atlanta. What's up, Jason?
What's up, boys? I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. And coming back from his darkness retreat, we missed him last week, but he's back. We have Jordan DeLuga from Gin Jag. What's up, Jordan?
Yo, ready to get back at it. Sorry I missed last week, but I had to take a little vacation time before the season started. Hang out with the fam.
I mean, Jordan, you're grinding, man. You are a grinder. I mean, you've been to all these different training camp practices. How many more are open to public or to media, I should say now?
I mean, it's over.
It's over.
It's all done.
So you have no more insight to anything going on than we do right now, is what you're saying.
No, I mean, I'll still be at practices throughout the season, but they only give you like 20 to 25 minutes, and it's not going to be really anything of note. So, yeah, as far as actually watching practice throughout the season, media is extremely limited in that regard. I will be there, for the press conferences and all that good stuff. I'll be boots on the ground, but you're not given nearly as much access once the season kicks off and end of preseason, this Friday for the Jaguars. So that's going to be pretty much it.
Is there any truth to the rumor that you pulled the fire alarm so you could get a better seat during Press Taylor's press conference?
Yeah, I was trying to steal D-Rock's seat, man, Got to do it. No, I was actually walking up. I wasn't even there yet. Like, it happened at 11:20. I was walking up, 10 minutes before the press conference started, about the time I try to get there. And I just see everybody pouring out. And I'm like, did I miss the press conference? Like, what's going on right now? And then I see like kitchen staff coming out and all the PR staff. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But apparently it was just a fire drill.
The media was probably like, where the hell is DeLugo at? Well, yeah. But sweet, man. Good to have you back. And, first we'll talk a little bit about the Buccaneers training, or the preseason game, I should say, even though it felt like training camp. But, there's always that game where starters and nobody really plays. And for the Jaguars, after, having joint practices with the Buccaneers, they decided that it's going to be okay to not play stars this one. So I guess I'll start with you, Jason. When you watched the Buccaneers game, what are some overall takeaways that you had after that?
Oh, man. Mac Jones obviously looked pretty sharp. I mean, he had the interception that got called back, which I think was a bad throw, even with the holding or PI, whatever it was called. But besides that one play, I thought he looked pretty good. I thought Anton Harrison looked good. I thought Luke Fortner looked bad. Tyler Shatley looked bad. It's hard to gauge from those games kind of much, but and the playbook, and maybe, I don't know what you guys thought, but the playbook seemed very vanilla. And maybe it was because these guys didn't know the plays as well as the starters do or whatever else. But when I was like kind of looking at the route concepts and even the run plays, it was all vanilla. It was all chalk, and it was kind of boring, if you ask me. So I don't think there's much you can take out of it. The guys who have been looking good kept looking good, and the guys who have been looking bad, I thought, kept looking bad. So that's about as deep as I could go in from that game.
Yeah, let's hear from you, Jordan.
Yeah, watching it live, I agree. It was kind of a boring ball game. Obviously, when you go back and watch both sides, you get more interesting insights and have a little bit more fun in that regard. At least I usually do, as long as it's not like some brutal Jaguars loss where you're just like, why do I have to watch this? But overall, I liked that they stuck to the ground game so much. I liked that they wanted to get Tank Bigsby going. You know, they ran the ball like 38 times or something like that for 140 yards. So they were able to play ball control offense. Obviously, it's not starters, but you're still trying to get that going a little bit. And you did see for the first drive, you did see Anton Harrison, you did see Ezra Cleveland. So it was good to see those guys out there for just a drive at least. And I thought that they both played well. I mean, Anton Harrison, he was pancaking folks left and right, sealing off the backside of runs. So, you know, that's the big thing you want to see from Anton Harrison is developing as a run blocker. And he talked about it today. I asked him, he thinks that they've made great progress as a unit, and that he's made progress as an individual. And if that performance is any indication, he certainly has. And I thought defensively there was plenty of good defensive line play, which you've seen throughout the preseason. A lot of competition up front for the Jaguars. And yeah, like you said, some of those backup offensive linemen was pretty brutal to watch. Thought, you know, Blake Hance getting knocked back and stepping on Mac Jones' foot. There was some ugly play for sure in the trenches for the Jaguars up front.
Yeah, and I know for this one, I'm not one of those guys that gets really, really enthralled with like the last man on the roster type of stuff. You know, so for me, I mean, the game was overall pretty boring for me, especially when to start the game you don't have Trevor Lawrence trotting out there. It's just a different vibe, and you don't have, you know, your big playmakers like Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, players like that jumping out there. But you know, like Jordan was saying, there were some starters out there. Anton Harrison did not play last week, so he was out there today, and also Ezra Cleveland was out there on Saturday as well. You know, so those were a couple guys. It was fun to see Brian Thomas Jr. out there, and you know, only came away with one catch, but ran a pretty nasty route that play, and you know, that was one of his things about, you know, does he have the whole route tree coming out of LSU? And it was one of those situations where it's like, can he not run the routes, or was he just not asked to run the routes? And of course, early look at him, I mean, he's looking pretty good, but you know, so oftentimes we'll judge a player in the preseason and it completely changes, you know, once the regular season starts. So, you know, obviously we'll wait for real games or real bullets to come before, you know, we really get this prognosis on whether or not BTJ is a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? You know, well, you know, but we've anointed Hall of Famers before. I mean, Walker
Absolutely.
Little, his rookie year was
No
a Hall
doubt.
of Famer.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley last year was about to turn around his NFL career and go in his mouth 1,400 yards and however many touchdowns he said he would have. So we've definitely seen some of that go on. So overall, I mean, even Tank Bigsby ran pretty well. You know, he contributed a lot in the run and pass game. And, you know, he definitely does look like a different player to me than he did last season. And, you know, of course, you know, he probably took this offseason. It was just like, man, last year was kind of embarrassing. I got to work at getting better. And the Jaguars gave him the rock a lot and, you know, are trying to get some of those jitters out of him because, you know, when you look at him and you can tell he's a fresh running back. I mean, you can look at him versus like, you know, one of these washed up 30-year-old running backs and just tell that this guy has a lot in the tank. And, you know, he runs hard and it's going to be fun, you know, to really see him. And, you know, overall, you know, Mac Jones, definitely quarterback too, you know, especially now with CJ Beathard down. I mean, he's got a groin. I don't know how bad that injury is, but, you know,
He does have a groin.
Yeah,
He does have.
He does have a groin. According to the injury sheet, he does have a groin. And he went in there and, man, I felt a little bad for him. I was like, this man's about to put in his 2-week notice. And then it was more like a 2-play notice because he was out of there quickly after
I want to get y'all's thoughts on two things, and it may be I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of anything, but like two guys, I want to get y'all's thoughts. For Cooper Hodges, I kind of like thought he actually surprised me, like because you know he's never played guard before in his life. I thought that he had some plays, especially in those first couple series where he played okay at guard. I want to get your thoughts on him, and then do you think Elijah Cooks really like hurt himself like a lot with those drops he had? Like, do you think he killed his chances? I mean, I know we're getting to wide receivers later, but like he was kind of one of the big talking points of the game. So do you think he like really killed his chances of making the roster?
Yeah, let's hear from you, Jordan.
Yeah, that's tough. Like on the one note, like he did go make a play on special teams. And if you're going to make the back end of the
That's true.
roster
That's true.
at wide receiver, you've got to be able to do that. But you also, to me, the Jaguars coaching staff is going to have to make a decision. And the decision is going to be, are we trying to keep a player that has the big body, the athleticism to go up and be a playmaker like an Elijah Cooks has? Are we keeping a player in Joshua Cephas who has a lot more potentially, right? Potentially there. Or are we going to keep reliable Tim Jones, who we know gets the job done on special teams, we know can do the dirty work on the offensive side of the ball, but doesn't have as much receiving chops as either of those guys? And for me, like, I don't necessarily think that preseason game changed anything, but it certainly did not help Elijah Cooks. I mean, you had an opportunity to haul in two passes that would have given your team big first downs, and you weren't able to do it. So that certainly didn't help. And then for me, Cooper Hodges, I thought that there were some decent reps, but I also thought that there were some abysmal reps where he got blown over by interior defensive linemen. And I know he hasn't really played guard before. I played tackle at App State, and he's coming off the knee injury. So it can take a while for offensive linemen, especially these big boys, to be able to really recover from a knee injury. And I think it's tough. I don't think the Jaguars are going to move on or anything like that. I do think they like him. I think that they see potential with him, certainly. But I did not think that was a great outing for him.
Yeah, and I know when it comes to like a guy like Cooper Hodges, when you have those big sack plays, I mean, with the offensive line, it's like you have if you don't notice them, usually they have a good game. But I know with the one big sack that he gave up, I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, it was pretty like jolting to kind of see him have that play. So I know this is another thing that like after the first preseason game against the Chiefs, people were saying, "Oh, should this guy replace a Brandon Sheriff on the right guard position?" It's like, no, let's wait a little bit before he starts over a veteran who's had legitimate Pro Bowl seasons that has just had his kind of fair share of bad luck with injuries. But I think that Cooper Hodges will continue to get a lot of reps this preseason because I think that's exactly what he needs is like live reps. So we'll see him a lot this upcoming Friday against the Falcons. And Elijah Cooks, I think it all just depends on like what do they want out of their final wide receiver. First of all, the Jaguars kept 7 wide receivers last year, which isn't something that usually happens. Usually it's 6 receivers, but I think they borrowed a receiver position from the tight end unit as the Jaguars, began the 2023 season with only 3 tight ends. So I think that on the depth chart, he was probably behind a Tim Jones. So maybe he was 7th, wide receiver 7. And I think it all is like I was saying, what do you want out of your final wide receiver? Would you rather a guy that, makes really good catches on offense, or would you rather a guy that, is really good as a gunner on special teams? Do you want somebody that is really good at blocking downfield? Because let's be real, like in the times that we saw Tim Jones come into the game, like the Jaguars aren't massively targeting him. They go after him maybe once or twice a game. Maybe Logan Cook will throw a fake punt to him, and really catching the ball isn't this big responsibility of that final wide receiver spot. It's all about special teams value, which we'll get into later because there is a wide receiver that's kind of emerging a little bit, and we'll kind of discuss whether or not he has a real shot to make this roster. But overall, like we said, backups. We're kind of playing 53-man roster battles. We will get into roster trimming, but I don't know. Do you guys have any last thoughts about this last Saturday's game against the Bucs?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there were several defensive linemen that played really well that have shown out throughout the preseason. I mean, Breland Speaks is a guy that continues to make plays. Talk about Gaziano. This was a guy that was signed on Friday before the game, replacing Rasheem Green on the roster, and he went out there and he got a sack to close it out. I thought that Ryan Nielsen, I loved the fact that even in the preseason, at the end of the game, and it wasn't to decide the game, the Jaguars were going to win the game whether or not the Buccaneers scored at the end or not, but I loved that he had Andrew Parker, the rookie, undrafted free agent, had the wherewithal to go up and tap Breland Speaks to get him to drop into coverage. And then the very next play, Gaziano fakes like he's going to drop into coverage and then darts into the backfield, and it confused the quarterback in a big way. And I think it led to disruption and confusion and ended up getting the Jaguars off the field there. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I know Breland Speaks is a guy that, he's gotten sacks in each of his games this preseason after being a late acquisition. I think they got him like the Thursday before the first preseason game. And, after being a UFL Defensive Player of the Year, looks a little bit goofy out there wearing number 67 with the high shoulder pads. But, he has a knack for getting to the quarterback, at least in this preseason. And, if he can rush the passer, generally you're going to find a spot, at least on somebody's roster. So,
yeah,
with
Miles Cole keeps popping too. I want to say that the 7th round pick who, I thought he should have been a 7th round pick, so I wasn't super high on him, but his length and athleticism and strength, I think he's starting to use his hands better. And I talked to Ryan Nielsen about that. He's been pretty impressive, considering where he was at Texas Tech, watching him on film to what I'm seeing now in the NFL preseason. I'm impressed.
So how are you feeling about, while we're talking about defensive linemen, I know you were kind of talking up a little bit about Trevis Gibson before the training camp started. How did you feel? Because he had a lot of snaps on Saturday. How are you feeling about him thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly edge 3 at this point. Makes plays, pushes the pocket. I think he helped the Jaguars get off the field twice on 3rd down by just collapsing the pocket against a tackle. He's working on both sides of the line. I think that at this point, he's their 3rd best edge rusher pretty clearly.
Yeah, gotcha.
I mean, I think like something that's I didn't expect out of him is like he's shown us he's pretty good against the run. Like, I mean, as a unit, we gave up some yards on the ground, especially early, but even look back to the Chiefs game, when he is setting that edge, he's not just setting the edge for setting the edge's sake. He's folding back in and making a tackle at the line of scrimmage. And like, he's kind of like a real instinctual player, which, I mean, admittedly, I knew nothing about him before he came here. I'll be honest. And so I'd never noticed him as an NFL player. I didn't even know who he was. And maybe that's on me. But when I started watching him in the preseason, I was like, this guy kind of is a pretty instinctual player. He kind of knows like where the ball is going to go. He's always in the right position. So I'm actually like pretty high and excited about Trevis Gibson, and hopefully he can translate what he's done in the preseason to the regular season. I know it's a different animal, but I'm pleasantly surprised with him so far.
Well, sweet.
Yeah, and you've seen him do it in the regular season. If you go back and watch like what he did in Chicago and even the limited reps last year in Tennessee, he's a pretty good player. And I think that the Jaguars obviously needed veteran edge depth, and I think he's provided that in a good way.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an upgrade from Chason, who I don't think I've ever seen a player in my lifetime steal more snaps from a team and done nothing with them. Okay. And I know, Jason, I know you got a little crush on.
We can't go down the Clavon Chason train right now. All right.
We'll go down the Clavon Chason versus Taven Bryan train a little bit later. Okay. that'll be a later show. Okay. Maybe like a May or June show. But with that said, roster trimming. Okay. This time next week, the Jaguars roster will no longer be at 90. It'll be at 53 players. So some tough decisions will need to be made. So we'll kind of go, I guess, position group by position group. And when it comes to quarterbacks, I think 2 guys are pretty much locks. Really, the only battle here is whether or not the Jaguars keep 2 quarterbacks or they keep 3 quarterbacks. Jason, how are you feeling about how many quarterbacks the Jaguars roster?
I think they keep 2 and move Beathard to the practice squad. I was trying to think like I think the only off chance that he gets sniped or poached off the practice squad is if like a divisional rival goes and picks him up and tries to steal the playbook. Like that's probably the only thing I could see happening. But I don't think there's a high demand for him out there. So I think Mac Jones is obviously like one of the higher tier backup quarterbacks in the league with the experience that he has with the Patriots and all of that. So, I mean, I think because of all the decisions they're having to make at corner, at D-line, at O-line, I think they just don't have the luxury of keeping a 3rd quarterback. And that's not even like some things that sometimes we forget that like not only are they evaluating guys on our roster, but they're also evaluating guys on other rosters that if they got cut, they could bring in to the O-line. They could bring in and upgrade who we have at that bottom end of the depth chart. So I just think because of the situation that we're in and because we have such quality at the quarterback position at 1 and 2, I think Beathard's a practice squad lock in my opinion.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Jordan?
Yeah, I feel the same exact way, and especially with the injury, I don't think that any team would sign a player dealing with an injury right now, especially not, you know, situation CJ Beathard's in. So I think it's very cut and dry. CJ Beathard to the practice squad. Mac Jones is your QB2. I've thought that since they traded for him. Like, you're not going to trade for a quarterback and then probably move on unless he just has an absolutely horrible offseason and training camp. And that hasn't been the case. He's been damn good in the preseason so far for the most part. Obviously brought some energy to the practice field. Like, he has a lot of fun out there every single day. And I think he's a guy that kind of has endeared himself to that locker room and to that football team. And again, has more talent than CJ Beathard. He's got a more live arm. He can spin it a little bit better. He's got a little bit more pocket movement skills, in my opinion. Obviously, he doesn't always put that on display. Sometimes it's a little goofy out there, but I think that he has a chance to be a very good backup quarterback for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and Mac Jones out there playing, he actually looks like he's having a lot of fun, to be honest. And ever since he really got to Jacksonville, I mean, it looked like he was just kind of he was in hell over there for the Patriots. I mean, obviously the situation over there wasn't good, and he had a pretty good game last Saturday, especially. You notice a difference between when CJ Beathard left the field and then Mac Jones went back in. It was just a different level of play, and Mac Jones or CJ Beathard, I don't think is going to get sniped from any kind of practice squad, especially now that he's, has this groin injury. And then he's a guy that always seems to get himself nicked up in games, and they're just not getting a very healthy quarterback.
Hey, if I'm a divisional rival, I think about maybe bringing him in to get that playbook. Maybe I'm crazy, but like it happens a lot. Like it happens a lot more than you. I mean, how often do you see that happen where like a player
does it happen that often?
The divisional rival picks him up, and then you're like, okay, wait a second. Now they know everything we're doing. So I don't know, but that's what I would do if I was a coach.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
he
I've
has
seen
been
it before. I would be surprised if that situation arose this year.
I mean, he has been on the Jaguars roster since 2021. I mean, man, he's going into his 4th year as a Jaguar. It's pretty crazy. But
yeah, I don't think you're going to see him turn coat.
Yeah.
Hey, money talks.
But maybe the Jaguars play the Colts, I think, week 6 at home. Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. They want some magic sauce, okay? So maybe that team
they would have to sign him to their active roster, and they have Richardson and Flacco. I mean,
dude, I think week 1 they had like 5 or 6 different quarterbacks take snaps. The Colts did. Like they have a lot of quarterbacks over there right now. So
yeah, so I don't see it.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. Next up, we'll go on to running back. So this one is a little bit interesting because going into training camp, I think all of us were kind of thinking, okay, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, then you're gonna have Dearness Johnson, then you're probably gonna have Keelan Robinson as your running back 4. He brings special teams value. That's why you drafted him in the 5th round, and you get a little bit of draft armor when you're actually a player that's drafted. So. But now we haven't seen anything from him. So it's almost like the Jaguars in a situation where they want to, stash him on an IR. Has Jalen Jackson been good enough to maybe warrant letting Keelan Robinson sit out for however long to kind of keep this guy on the roster? I know there's been, Jordan spoke some good things about him at training camp. Thought he had a pretty good week 1 of preseason. Didn't really, flash too much in week 2, but yeah, we'll let Jordan start with this one. How are you feeling about the running backs on the Jaguars roster?
I thought Jalen Jackson still ran strong. I know that he didn't like pop off numbers wise, but I still thought he did a good job last week. And in pass protection, he did a very good job as well. And that's something that's going to endear him to coaches. But Keelan Robinson, I do think he's a big time injured reserve candidate. There's a new rule this year in the NFL when it comes to cut down day. You're allowed to place 2 players on injured reserve that do not have to miss the rest of the season. Like it used to be, if you're putting someone on injured reserve during training camp or at the end of training camp when you're making these roster moves down to 53, that player has to sit out the entire year. That's no longer the case for 2 players. Currently, the Jaguars, I think, have 2 players that make sense in that regard, Keelan Robinson and Dewey Wingard. So as long as nothing else really changes, I think that that's probably going to be the path they go down because, yeah, you just haven't gotten to see him on the field. He's dealing with a toe injury. You've seen him in a boot. So I do think that that's probably the most likely scenario moving forward.
How are you feeling about this, Jason?
I just don't see it with Jackson. If anything,
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make the team.
Yeah,
But I like
mean,
him.
So do you
Yeah, I
think
like
there's a
him
spot
too.
where the Jaguars maybe go snipe a player that gets cut?
I mean, that could be, to me,
Maybe.
that could be a position where, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like Brightwell. I mean,
I do too.
I like the similar things that you're talking about with Jackson. I kind of feel the same way with Brightwell. I mean, I think that he does a good job picking up the blitz. I think he runs hard. He's got a little bit of experience. So if you're going to bring in a fourth guy to be on the, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of like gonna go to what they want. Again, could be a special teams guy, like who they think contributes more on special teams in that regard. It's fun to talk about here on this show. In reality, if we're seeing either one of those guys on the field, we're in trouble. Because we want, Bigsby's looked good. I'll give him that. I was pretty tough on Bigsby last year, and I still am tough, and I'm still gonna. I mean, I said this last week. Like, I still want to see him hold on to the football. I'm not worried about him as a running back. Like, we know he's a good running back. It's just ball security, and that'll get you taken off the field faster than anything. So ball security.
We saw that last year.
Yeah, exactly. And so ball security is gonna be the biggest thing for him. I still want to see him do it in a live regular season game. It's a little different. But if ETN isn't getting 65 to 70% of the snaps, then we're in trouble, because he was getting snaps last year and we couldn't do anything. So we hopefully don't have to worry about this, but I get it for the sake of roster cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they'll keep 3 running backs, and there's a great chance that they could stash Jackson or Brightwell on the practice squad as well.
Yeah. Because I don't know if any team's really out there clamoring for somebody like that. And generally, when running backs go down, they want to bring in like a guy with some experience, especially if because I think one pivotally undervalued thing, or not really undervalued, but not really talked about amongst fans, is like blitz pickup. Like you need, obviously the most important player in your franchise is your quarterback. So you want to have a guy that can pick up a linebacker if he comes in on, a delayed blitz, and they can actually see them and does get a free shot on your quarterback. So yeah, there's some good stash candidates, and do they keep 3? Do they keep 4? We'll just have to see. I know last year they kept 7 wide receivers, and of course, if you keep that, you got to take away from another position. So we'll just have to see with that. And speaking of wide receivers, we'll move on to the wide receiver spot. And really, there's some locks here. Of course, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis. These are some roster locks, and I know I'm missing one person.
Devin Duvernay, probably.
Yeah, Devin Duvernay is who I'm missing.
Parker.
And I think Parker Washington, he was before training camp, I was seeing some beat reporters leaving him off of their, 53-man roster predictions. But man, if there's a guy that locked himself into a spot, man, Parker Washington has a ton of value for this team, and just his ability and it was surprising me because last year he made a lot of impressive catches, and he brings a lot of special teams too, so he's in the lock there. But wide receiver 6, this was something that a lot of us were kind of excited about. You have Joshua Seafish, you have Elijah Cooks, you have some players that might contend here, but unfortunately, Cephas had himself a fumble. Obviously, we talked about Elijah Cooks earlier, and the guy that's really kind of rising to the top right now is Austin Trimwell. But I don't know if the Jaguars, if they keep a wide receiver 6, does he offer the type of special teams value that the Jaguars may want? So, we'll start off with Jordan. When it comes to your wide receiver 6, how are you feeling about this one?
I think it'll be Tim Jones, and I think that they are going to keep 6. I think that that's what they're going to do. They went heavy at wide receiver last year. They went light at offensive line. Cam Robinson was suspended to start the year, so that did have a little bit of an impact on the offensive line situation. But I think the Jaguars are going to go much heavier in the trenches this year than they did last year with the 53-man roster, and I think that wide receiver is going to be one of the positions where you see it back at more of a normal number with 6 instead of 7.
Yeah, how about yourself, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, additionally to Cam Robinson, they had Ben Bartch slated to start, if you remember, at left guard at the beginning of the season, and he was kind of an unknown, so it makes sense. But beating a dead horse here. Here we are at the beginning of the 2024 season and still unsure about the offensive line and their productivity. I think we have our starters penciled in, which is good. But I think you're right. Maybe they like Cooks and they keep him on. I wish Trammell might be one of those guys that maybe next year, if he does it again, we bring him back. And he's a guy that's going to have to really work his way onto a roster. But he had back-to-back, well, I guess not back, 2 out of 3 plays in the third quarter where he really played, had great plays. And it just kind of seems like he is kind of a repetitive position skill set with Parker Washington and Christian Kirk as that slot guy who can run the drag and kind of get open that way. I don't think they're worried about that. I think if they're worried about the Brian Thomas Jr. deep threat, the Gabe Davis deep threat, that's what they need to do, because they were abysmal last year in getting the ball down the field, which we all know the problems there. But it's not a situation where I think the Jags coaches are too concerned. They're really just who helped us the most on special teams. I know we keep saying that, but with the new kickoff rules and that's another little side tangent is are we going to see the kickoffs completely change team strategies once the regular season starts? I think I heard on the radio today that teams are averaging 29 yards, the 29-yard line starting. So if that's the case, kick it out of the end zone, right? So I think it's going to just come down to who helps the most on special teams, and I think that's why Tim Jones gets the spot. Elijah Cooks, again, helps on special teams. So I don't know. It's not a good answer, but it'll probably just be 6.
Yeah, and I think with the
Trammell has played really well. I have to give him credit.
Yeah.
It's in practice too. It's not just in those games. He's done a really good job. So it'd be awesome to be able to keep a guy like that around on the practice squad too.
It's just if our 4th and 5th wide receiver weren't also pretty good punt returners, because Devin Duvernay was brought here solely as a punt returner and kick returner. That's why they gave him all this money. Parker Washington is a guy that he shows a lot. Obviously we saw the kick return, and he did it last year. He returned punts, and even if you're in a real bind, I know they don't want it, but you also have Christian Kirk who can do it as well. But I just feel with the wide receiver 6 spot, when you're looking at when you rank him, I think with the Jaguars, what they want is probably first a guy that can be a good gunner on special teams. Number 2, I think they want a guy that can block well, and number 3 would probably come to true wide receiver ability, going out there and catching it. And while when Tim Jones is on the field, we're not whoa, we're not blown away by it. He usually does stuff that's kind of away from the ball. He might get a target or two if we're down some wide receivers, but which we were last year. He had a couple of targets, but yeah, with this spot, I don't think that Trammell provides the type of special teams that you need, because he's not the same kind of body type as a guy like a guy like Tim Jones or whoever they want to keep on there. So that's kind of my thoughts. So I guess we're all kind of chalky here. Tim Jones kind of as a wide receiver 6. So real quick, couple super chats. We had the Garth, who was in the AFC South roundtable last night, spending money, straight talking so much shit to the other AFC South people. Love to see it. It says if ATL's bum D-line pressures T-Law, we got an issue. Yeah, and that's, we'll get into the Falcons preview later. Jaguar starting offensive line will be playing, so we are going to want to see some unison. We're going to want to see them be able to block some people, and that'll be a big test, especially on the interior of the defensive line, which Atlanta Falcons do have a pretty good interior. Also, Rando with a $2 donation says interior O-line has to be revamped ASAP. And if by ASAP you mean in March, yeah, it will be hopefully, but nothing's coming unless nothing's coming. They might make a trade and at the trade deadline, last year they brought in Ezra Cleveland, maybe to do something like that. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't really see something like that coming. But real quick, guys,
you don't see a Mac Jones for Dalton Risner swap happening at some point?
Show me the money. Sure, I'll take it.
Hey, throw in a third. I know Risner hasn't been good, but
don't we already have Minnesota's third?
Yeah.
Everyone gets with the comp picks. There's a billion thirds to go around. There's never.
They probably will get another one with the with Kirk Cousins signing in Atlanta. So yeah, but the Jaguars do currently have their only 3rd round pick.
And right now we possess a 3rd round pick for a team that will be starting Sam Darnold this next season. So
And when Mac Jones gets paid $50 million next offseason, we'll get another 3rd-round pick. So it's all looking up.
It'll be amazing. Maybe the Raiders will see a Gardner Minshew versus Mac Jones QB battle. Okay, we'll be tuning into their preseason games and breaking those down. But by the way, guys, as we all know, these streams are powered by BetUS, and guys, we're gonna actually go over here. We're gonna actually play some bets. So let me switch this view around. We're gonna go like this. Let me change this banner.
$1 million in your account.
Bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, no, we're making money. Okay, we're making money. I got what, 2K in here, so we're gonna be spending money. Okay, so first of all, I don't want to give too much analysis on this. Look, like I said, BetUS sponsored this channel like last year, and the Jaguars straight up destroy preseason spreads, 5-0 against the spread in preseasons. And guys, you know, good preseason teams win, but great preseason teams cover. Okay, the Jaguars are 7-point favorites against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm gonna lay that down. We are going to.
Somebody told me today that they were underdogs by 6.5. I was like, that does not make any sense when the Jaguars are having starters playing for up to 2 quarters, and the Falcons are sitting all their starters.
So
I guess I got some bad information.
No, you got some bad information, or they're on one of the. They're not on the #1 betting platform out there.
They're not on BetUS, obviously.
Yeah. So you know what? In spite of that guy, I'm putting out 50. Okay, the Jaguars are preseason locks. Okay. We're laying down 50 on this one, but the next one I want to get to. Okay,
2 straight undefeated preseasons.
Yeah, here we go. We're the new Ravens.
We're coming for it. We're coming for it. Yeah, we are quietly the new Ravens. So next up, I want to, you know, we're talking about so much preseason, and you know, we're talking about like the 53-man roster breakdowns, which is all well. You know, we're covering current events, but let's do a little. Let's look ahead a little bit, can we? Okay, the Jaguars are currently 3.5-point underdogs against the Miami Dolphins. I think Miami Dolphins is a really tough draw for week 1, just because it's like,
I'd say so.
I would rather play the Dolphins in like December when they slow down a little bit. Right now, they got so much speed, you know, with obviously Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, 8-chain, all that stuff. So
Jalen Ramsey and Calais Campbell.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, but 3.5-point underdogs. We'll go with the betting man Jason. How you feeling about this line? Is it juicy?
Well, as an experienced gambler, the first thing that raises a red flag is that 0.5-point hook, right? So that's where they want to get you. Typically, if they're giving you that 0.5-point hook, they want you to bet on the Jags. That's how Vegas works. That's why it's there, because you're like, hey, NFL games always come down to 3 points. So as a gambler, that's somebody like, if I didn't have a vested interest in the team, I would take the Dolphins, because Vegas wants you to bet those 3 points. That's how they're going to get you. It's what's called a trap bet. But since I'm a Jags homer, I could see this game coming down to a field goal. It is, like you said, it's a tough draw. You never want to play a team that's known for speed and a team that on paper gets the ball out the quickest of any NFL team. You never want to play them week 1 because they're all fresh, they're all ready to go. But on the same token, week 1s are always weird. Week 1s are always weird. If you look all throughout history of week 1, remember when the Jags, what year was it when they went
2020, baby.
Week one they win. Which week they won week 1? Okay,
week 1. We are not satisfied with 1-0.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Week 1s are tough to bet. Typically, I like to stay away from week 1, but the degenerate in me, if it wasn't the Jags, I'd take the Dolphins. But since it's the Jags, I'm smashing the Jags.
Yeah. How about you, Jordan? Where are you feeling on this one?
I don't like it.
Ooh, you don't like it.
I don't like it.
What a downer.
No, look, I mean, this is a tough one. It's on the road. It's in Miami. The Dolphins, if you can't figure out how to make Tua pause for just a split second longer than he wants to, they are going to eat you alive. Some teams have been able to do that, usually later on in the season versus earlier in the season. But it is interesting because there is a lot of change. You know, they've lost a lot of their star offensive linemen. You've got Isaiah Wynn on the pup. Bradley Chubb is still on the pup on their defensive front. So, and they obviously lost Christian Wilkins as well. They lost their starting center. They lost their best guard. So there are moving pieces here. There are potential injuries. I know Odell Beckham is still on the pup, which obviously you don't need him when you have the level of speed and talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball. But Tyreek Hill has a little hand thing going on. I don't think that's going to end up impacting week 1. But there are, if you're trying to convince yourself the Jaguars can go do that, there's some reasoning behind it. And obviously a new defensive coordinator for them as well, who does not have experience calling games as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Whereas, of course, the Jaguars' new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, been there, done that.
Yeah. So for me, I guess so are you officially are you leaning Miami on this spread? Is that your official? Is that
I have to take one. I have to do it.
You can do it with a preface that
yes, Jordan, you have to gamble on this game. All right, you have to pick one.
Yes, Jordan, I'm gonna Venmo request you $20 after this. You're putting money down right now. Jags. All right. So we got 2 for the Jags. See, for this one, you also remember, we're not doing this straight up. Okay. If the Jaguars lose this game by 3, you win. Okay. That's the way these spreads work. But weeks 1s are weird. This is I don't even want to look at the first quarter of our season because it's brutal. But we're supposed to be a playoff team, right? Playoff teams beat other playoff teams. Playoff teams win and beat good opponents. So week 1, everybody's going to be looking at, the Dolphins. And a lot of people aren't really looking at the Jaguars right now, okay? We are right now in the Texans' shadow, okay? Everybody's looking at the Texans, much like they were with us last year. But right now, everybody's sleeping on the Jaguars. We're going to put...
Wait, before you place that bet, let me just point out something as a gambler. Anybody's eye being drawn to the over under of 49?
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah. That's tough
because Dolphins are going to score. The Jags offense looks better than people think.
How long does it take for offensive click? That's the thing. We don't know yet.
49 though. I mean, that's 25-25. That's
but it generally takes one team to probably put up 27-30.
Just saying, if I'm betting this game, that's what I'm betting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad thought. It really isn't. Especially if you think the Jags are going to be competitive, you're probably thinking it's going to be a game above 24-24. So I see your point there, Jason. This is why I don't get into betting.
Jason gets into it. Jason knows all about it. Okay. And I have $2,300 right now on BetUS. You guys know I get into it. Okay. So we're going to do, I'm going to put $50 on a preseason game. Okay. The Jaguars are preseason champions. The Jaguars are the Ravens. I'm going to put a cool $20 on week 1.
Beautiful.
And we'll see if this line moves because, we'll revisit this game in a couple of weeks and see where it's at. Maybe the Jaguars are all of a sudden 2.5 point underdogs to 1.5 point underdogs. So all of a sudden, boom, the Jaguars, all of a sudden, the media is loving them after doing a deep dive on them. So I'm placing my bets. Okay. We're doing this. Risking 70 to win 63. You already know. So we're gonna tune in this preseason game. Okay. We better beat the spread because I'm not about to go undefeated until I bet on this game. Okay. so with all that said, guys, on BetUS, down in the description box down below, we have a 125% deposit bonus for you guys, meaning that if you guys put down $100, you're going to see $50 or $225, I should say, show up your account. So really
Aren't
good
you
stuff
the CPA?
there.
Aren't you the CPA?
I am the CPA. I don't know why. I don't know where the 50 came from. I have no idea where the 50 came from. But yes, if you put $100 down, you're gonna see $225 show up in your account. That's the official over is 225, and I'm taking that. So with all that said, they also have 24/7 customer support. So if you guys have a question, if you guys are like, what the fuck? You can call them. They're gonna answer. Also, guys, quick 24-hour payout. So I'm going to be cashing this thing out on Saturday when I win this $50 that I just put down. I'm getting it on Saturday.
You're not cashing it out. We saw the money in your account. You're not cashing out $60.
I'm not. I was thinking about maybe going and grabbing some sushi on Saturday. little sushi date on BetUS because I smashed that spread this last weekend. So yeah, with that said, guys, BetUS is going to get you guys covered with all that good stuff, and we appreciate them for sponsoring this Club Jaguar show as well as this channel. So with that said,
Yeah,
we're gonna
maybe
get through
some
a couple of
dolphin.
different things.
You know,
What's that?
maybe get some dolphin.
That's true. Put that in the sushi roll. I love that.
Little mahi.
Couple of quick super
No,
chats.
we don't eat sea mammals on this channel here.
No.
Yeah, not this channel.
Don't do it.
We'll wait for the mahi. Okay. So
Yeah.
Rando says, "Yo, UCF, should the Jags get another prime pass rusher before the trade deadline? And should we re-sign Cisco before week 1?" I mean, Balky doesn't generally sign players during the season, it feels like. So, and that one I think can probably wait. When it comes to the prime pass rusher, we'll just have to see where our roster stands. I mean, we're one injury away from being probably really needing another position. So we'll revisit it. Any of you guys got thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think they'll trade for a pass rusher, like a prime pass rusher, right? I mean, maybe someone for depth if they need it, or if there's an injury or something that they could maybe trade for someone. But I know they flirted with Danielle Hunter a little bit, it seemed like, but never pulled the trigger. I think they're locked in with Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker long term. So I don't see them making a play for a prime pass rusher. And should the Jaguars re-sign Cisco before week 1? I absolutely think they should. I've been on the Cisco train for a while, but I don't think they will.
Yeah.
I agree with Jordan on the first part. You're looking at when you talk about a prime pass rusher, you're looking at what? Max 40% of snaps on the high end. Realistically, looking at like 30% of the snaps. I think that's why they didn't pull the trigger on Danielle Hunter last year. And if they're not going to bring in help for Kalavon Chazon, they're definitely not going to bring in help for Trevis Gibson. So I don't think that happens at all unless you see an injury and they think they're making a run, maybe in that situation, perhaps. And I disagree with Jordan here. I don't think they should re-sign Cisco. I love Cisco. I think he's a great player. But there's two major things that are hampering that from happening. It's number one is he had injuries last year that kept him from playing at the level that he could. And, we talk about, and this is one thing, I'm not going to go off on it here, but like you hear people talk like, oh, well, if healthy, this position's good. If healthy, this position's top of the league. If healthy, this position group is the best in the league. Every single team could say that. Like every single team has injuries somewhere where they're like, oh, if this guy's healthy, the reality of it is there's some guys in the NFL that can't stay healthy. So you don't wish it on anybody. You hope it doesn't happen. But that's the reality of the situation. You can look all around the league and find guys who can't stay healthy. And if Cisco and even Campbell, which I know he's already resigned, but if these guys become these guys that can't stay healthy, you don't want to give them premier money. The second thing that's hampering this situation is the safety market has become so devalued that I don't want to overpay for a safety when we could maybe get a rookie on a deal that could come in and be a safety for cheaper. And so they're kind of becoming the defensive running back in my position, in my mind, unfortunately. So I would hold off on Cisco. And even if he balls out, pay him. If he plays like he has been, I don't know. I'm kind of torn there because if it's me, I'm saving money at that safety position.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of guys that can pick the ball off like he can and cover ground like he can at that position while also being able to lay the wood. So I'm 100% on board with Andre Cisco moving forward. And I hope we can revisit this conversation.
Yeah, and we will, because especially, so there's a couple things that go into this. First of all, the Jaguars now had to really watch the checkbook. Okay, they got the quarterback under contract, they got the premier edge rusher under contract, they got the number one cornerback under contract. So when it comes to actually trading for like a pass rusher, for example, you got to think, okay, what's the implications down the line? Like, can we actually repay this guy? Because you give up, now the Jaguars have an extra 3rd round pick to play with, which maybe, that might factor into maybe pulling the trigger on a trade at the deadline. But, they have, just their last year of their deal, when you forecast it in the future, you need some, 3rd round pick. That's a pretty good pick. And it's also, when you look at the contracts on the books, it's cheap deals. You know what I mean? It's guys that are kind of cheap, compared to like one of these expensive free agents. And, we'll see. we'll see. But it doesn't feel like, Balky likes to deal during the season. So we'll see. Real quick with the Garth, he says, we need to remember 3 points on the spread for home team. This is really a half-point spread. That's true. Going back to our lines on BetUS. So real quick, we're going to keep running through this. At the tight end position when we're making roster cuts as we get to the end of the show, do you guys think that we keep 3 or 4 tight ends on this roster with the way things are looking?
3.
3?
Yep.
I love Josiah Jaguar, but I think they're going to go same way they did last year. They kept 3, and they're going to keep the same 3. Luke Farrell, obviously, is your third tight end, your blocking guy. Brenton Strange, kind of hybrid, and Evan Ingram is your number 1.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of right with you guys on that one too. It's the Jaguars showed last year that they're okay with keeping 3 tight ends, and brought in a couple of free agents and cheaper free agents, I should say. So we'll see where that goes.
You're telling me you're telling me you're not keeping Doug Peterson's kid? I don't know about that.
He's injured.
Is he injured?
Oh,
Yeah, I thought he was
he's injured.
Oh, no.
Yes, he's injured. So
he's
can't
going
remember
to
his
IR
name.
him on a whole year.
I can't remember his
yeah.
first name.
Here you go.
Josh.
Here you go.
Josh.
Josh Peterson.
Josh.
Yeah. Which he looks just like his dad, by the way. It's pretty funny. So with the offensive line, I mean, are there any surprise cuts you guys see coming? Is Fortner going to be safe? Because I don't know if it's a 3rd round pick. He's got the only thing he has going for him, I think, is the 3rd round pick armor. So I guess, Jordan, where are you feeling on this one?
Yeah, he's safe.
He's safe.
Unfortunately. Yeah, I think that Shatley probably is not going to make the team. If I had to say, I think they could practice squad if he's down for that. I know he told Hacker the day of the in stadium scrimmage that he's going to retire after the season. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there, but I don't think he's going to make the team. Other than that, surprise, probably either Blake Hance or Cole Van Lannon doesn't make the team. I don't think either of those is a shocking development, but one of those guys probably doesn't make it. I would be shocked. I think Cooper Hodges will make it. I think they like him. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I try to find things to disagree with Jordan on, but he's just always right about stuff, and I hate it.
Well, the 53-man roster this year, there's not a whole lot of crazy battles this year,
yeah, that's true.
I think defense is more interesting.
Yeah, which we'll get into defense here shortly, but
I mean, I will say 2 things that kind of annoyed me. Okay. You guys know me. I like to speak my mind. Number 1 thing that annoyed me this week, the NFL Plus Tuesday. The game was on Saturday, not even a Sunday game. It was a Saturday game. Tuesday, they still didn't have the All-22 out. Are you kidding? How are we supposed to break down the trenches if we can't see from the end zone? I was a little pissed about that. I don't pay $100 a year to sit here and watch the regular broadcast like peasants. Okay. So I was a little pissed about that.
That's what sucks when you watch it live, because everything in these preseason games, you want to watch the trenches. I
Right,
think that's the most intriguing part. And when you're watching, you can't see anything on the TV copy.
Not at all. I mean, you can see who maybe missed a block, but you can't really see what they were supposed to be doing or trying to be doing, which is kind of annoying. So it's even hard to blame. I watched. I mean, there was a play where Tyler Shatley completely whiffed on a block, and Mac Jones had to scramble. And there was another play where he whiffed on a block, and then he got sacked. And it's I'm pretty sure that was Tyler Shatley's fault, but from the sideline angle, I can't really see what everyone was doing.
It's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell whose fault it was. Kind of pissed about that. The second thing, PFF came out and said that Cole Van Lannon was the PFF player of the week, and which great, cool, I love it. But then they said he gave up 0 pressures. And then I watched a play where he clearly gave up a pressure. There's no gray area. He got bulldozed by an edge rusher into the backfield. And I was like, that's a pressure. So don't believe.
I'm pretty sure it led to an incomplete pass.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know. Those 2 things irked me this week. So I'm glad I got it off my chest. I appreciate that, guys.
Me too.
Let me do that.
I actually literally noticed the same thing. I was like, really? Cole Van Lannon? Because he played pretty well, but he was certainly not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And he did have at least 1 pressure he allowed that was pretty ugly. So
you think he actually sees that and it's oh wow, look at me, or is he you know what I mean? If you're a player and you get that kind of thing, especially because I'm sure he got ripped into in the film room when some of the bad stuff that happens is oh, look at me, I'm highly graded by the PFF intern this week. I don't know. And I do think PFF, I mean, they get better, I think, over the years, but yeah, that one was definitely a little bit puzzling. So next, I kind of grouped the defense into like a whole. And I know Jordan was kind of wanting to talk about defense. Like, with this one, like anything surprising here when it comes to roster, anybody that might surprisingly, make the roster, maybe get cut from the roster.
I just think back end of edge is going to be really interesting. Back end of interior defensive line is going to be interesting because, like, is Tyler Lacey on the team? I'm not sure. I'm really not. I think he probably is, but I'm not sure. And then back of edge, like Yasir Abdullah is technically like an off-ball linebacker now, hybrid type of player. So I don't think of him at edge. I think of him more off-ball linebacker. But at edge, you've got DJ Coleman, you've got Miles Cole, you've got Breland Speaks, you've got several guys I think competing for like one spot. Because the Jaguars kept 4 edge last year. I think they're probably going to do the same thing again this year. And then you talk about off-ball linebacker. There's a bunch of guys there too. And then safety, there's guys playing good football, and you've got injuries to Andrew Wingard. You've got Deshaun Gibson suspended. So, like, there's intrigue there. Corner, there's tight battles like DeAndre Prince, Buster Brown, Christian Braswell back into the corner room. I just think defense is going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah. How about yourself, Jason? What are some thoughts about this unit?
I don't know. Like, do you think there's a difference this year with the edge being more a traditional D end than it was last year, where like the edge roles were like distinctly different? Like, do you think maybe there's a change in how many ends they keep versus
maybe?
Yeah, and so that's something I'm looking out for.
But they also like big guys, and like Tyler Lacey and Eric Armstead and Mason Smith, I think, can all play 5 technique for you if you want them to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know.
and they're playing Abdullah as like in packages where he's like the 5th D lineman. He's not really lined up like in like 5 yards off the ball like a traditional off ball linebacker. So it's kind of, they're obviously, I think they keep him, but like where they classify him, like doesn't really matter. But as far as for us, like who they keep, he is kind of an end in my opinion, like how they use him. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of like, I want to get y'all's thoughts. Like, what do you think about like Amos and Terrell Edmonds? Like, now Edmonds is like a bona fide safety now, and he's actually, I mean, he plays pretty well, and I'm kind of seeing, they're both kind of coming downhill with ferocity and striking offensive players. So, do you think they keep both? Do you think one makes it over the other? What are your guys' thoughts on Edmonds?
I think it'd be interesting if Dewey wasn't injured, if he gets pushed off the roster by Terrell Edmonds, because Terrell Edmonds is pretty good. You don't think so? You don't think he? No. Yeah. I don't know. He just seems like it just seems like he flashes to me on a defense, and he's a thumper. I don't know, but you don't think so?
No, I mean, Dewey is an integral part of this football team.
Yeah,
as a special teamer, as a leader, as a third safety, they like what he brings. I know that for a fact, and he has had a good. Prior to getting injured, he was playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that there's any issue there, or there would have been. But I do think Edmonds has played well. I think Amos has played well. So it is going to be tough. I just kind of think, like, do you really keep 5 safeties knowing that one of them's eventually going to get cut when you bring Wingard back, or like Deshaun Gibson? What's going to happen there when he's done with his suspension? Neither of those guys will count against the initial 53. I just don't know. I think the defense is going to be wild.
So what do you guys think about, like, what do you guys make of this Roy Robertson Harris situation? Because like I don't know, like it wasn't really situation. There is no situation. Like, isn't it kind of weird though that he's playing so late in these preseason games? Like, he's a veteran who just signed a big deal last year. I just think that,
he's not a starter anymore.
Yeah. It's just man.
And money wise, they can't move him.
Yeah. Well,
they can't move him this year or next year.
But is there a situation where they take a dead cap hit on him, or is he fine?
No.
You think he's fine to make this
that
roster?
Would be? I don't think that would be wise at all.
Yeah.
Because I do think he can help a football team as a depth player.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
And like Jordan said, they like the big guys, and he's one of the biggest guys on the team.
And he could have tech if you needed him to.
Yeah, and my issue with him was obviously like against the run. It was a guy you brought in to, when we ran the odd man front to be able to two gap, and he just was unable to two gap, unfortunately, even given his size, effectively, anyways. So now that we move into this even man front, they ask him to get into just one gap and occupy that one gap and let the linebackers make plays behind him. Is that something that now he's more valuable because he's technically being asked to do less? And I think that could help him more than anything. He's obviously playing below his contract. We all see that.
Yeah.
It would not be wise to take the dead cap hit, but we've seen crazier things. And if he gets picked up by another team, you're not taking as big of a hit on the dead cap. So they could be thinking about that. I don't think it's a crazy idea, but I think they do like him in the locker room. I mean, I think he was a captain last year, wasn't he? So I think they do like him. But he definitely, I think we all would agree, we would like to see him play a little bit better than he has shown the last year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And Ryan Nielsen raved about him this morning. He talked really highly of him. I know you're not going to bash anyone when someone's asking you about one of your players, but he was glowingly talking about Roy Robertson-Harris.
I mean, when they asked Doug Peterson about Luke Fortner, he was pretty glowing about Luke Fortner last year. So I don't know if the coach speak, we can read too much into that.
That's fair. But I think when you talk about the fact that you're going to have $12 million in dead money for a player that can help your football team, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then you look beyond this year, $7.7 million in dead money next year. 2026, $5.4 million in dead money. They really anchored themselves or tied themselves to Roy Robertson-Harris for the next couple of years, in my opinion.
Well, that's given that no team picks him up.
I feel like he'd be a player that clears Ross or clears waivers, and then somebody tries to sign him. I don't know how many people are jumping to kind of get on that contract before waivers clears, but I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's a moot point, anyways.
Yeah, but. I guess final point, obviously we have a preseason game Friday. It's going to be the most fun game of the year because starters are getting some significant playing time. They said 2 quarters. I don't know if that means a quarter and a half. I don't know if that means a full half, but Doug said 2 quarters. So real quick, let's get some thoughts about what are you kind of looking at this upcoming game, Jason?
Well, first of all, Doug Peterson is an Andy Reid disciple, and Andy Reid is notorious for saying the starters are going to play more than they are. Doug Peterson has been pretty honest, though, so I will give him that. And if he says that, he typically means it. I don't think I need to see them play that much, to be honest with you. I would be fine with a quarter. But if they do play, I'm just looking for a clean offensive execution. There was a miscommunication play last week with the second team out there on one of the plays on the second drive where half the receivers were blocking, half the linemen were moving left. It was just no one knew what they were doing. So you don't want to see that with the starters. You kind of just want to see everything look clean. You want to see no injuries. Again, I know the Falcons aren't playing everybody, but let's get these guys on the field, off the field. Let's look good, and let's stay injury-free, and I will be happy.
Yeah, let's hear from you, Jordan.
Yeah, I don't even barely want to see these starters, really.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, it's interesting how so many different teams do things differently throughout the preseason. Most of the teams around the league kind of looked at week 2 as the week where you get your starters in there and play them a little bit more, whereas the Jaguars are not doing that. They're going in on week 3, it looks like. But obviously, this is going to be the first time you're seeing all starting 5 offensive linemen out there together, live reps this preseason. So you want to see them go out there and kick some butt against backups. You absolutely do. And you want to see Trevor Lawrence move the football, make good decisions, stay clean. I want to see Trevor Lawrence complete a pass to Brian Thomas Jr. in a live setting. He has not done that yet. And that's not criticism. He's barely played. So I would like to see those things and stay healthy. And if the starting defense is out there, I'd like to see Josh Hines-Allen mess somebody up.
Yeah.
I'm always here for that.
Always here for it, the new number 41. And I know for myself, I think the main thing that we all want to see is Jaguars Twitter. Everyone's just freaking out about the offensive line. It would be nice for the offensive line to go out there and push some people. Okay, it'd be nice for ETN to actually be able to hit some holes. It'd be nice when we do stretch plays to actually be able to get some positive yards out of it instead of, running into, 2-3 guys that are behind the line of scrimmage. So that is the main thing I'm looking forward to. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, Jordan. It's like now, Stars are playing like the third preseason game. I mean, between Friday and week 1 of the regular season, that's 16 days, between, going full contact with each other. So it's definitely interesting timing. But everybody has their own philosophy. And I guess at the end of the day, you just want to come out, the ultimate, even though we laid, $50 down on the money line or on the spread on this one, the real victory is if you come out, injury free. But unfortunately, BetUS does not have a prop on that one. But yeah, that's the main thing we're looking forward to. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, Trevor Lawrence sling the ball around. We'd like to see any Brian Thomas Jr. we can see. Both catches that he's had this year have been pretty fun to watch. And, it's cool. I feel like Trevor Lawrence and Gabe Davis are really building a connection. So I want to continue to see that, especially in the middle of the field, an area that we didn't utilize a whole lot last year. So, I hope Gabe Davis can kind of help in that area. And yeah, let's just continue to see an aggressive Ryan Nielsen defense and, get some pressure on. I don't think Kirk Cousins or Penix are playing this game. So whoever they have going on over there, Heineke. So Heineke,
Yep.
they just cut our
And
boy.
they just signed another quarterback as well.
I thought Heineke was with Washington. Is he not? I don't know.
No, he's
Atlanta
left.
Falcons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know anything.
I think ATL is his like hometown, so he's back. He was
seems like an ATL guy.
Last year they benched Desmond Ridder for him, and
yeah,
that's right.
He's got a little bit of that like Minshew to him. Like he comes in there, he provides a spark. He looks like he's having fun playing football. That kind of guy. But yeah,
there are some potential interesting Falcons that you could see. Backup young guys. Brandon Dorless was somebody who was really intriguing in this past draft class, and Ruka Ororo they traded up for, I believe, in the second round. 2 interior defensive linemen that the Jaguars starting offensive line might be going against. So it'll be interesting to see the Jags, starters going up against these talented rookies up front. I think you want them to kick their butts, and hopefully they can. And I'm a huge fan of Clark Phillips as well. We'll see if he gets out there. Cornerback for the Falcons, undersized but super feisty. So those are going to be some Falcons you can look to watch out for.
Jordan needs to take up fishing or something. The fact that he knows this much about the Atlanta Falcons depth chart, like you need to fishing, hunting.
Jordan goes deep.
You gotta pick up like
Jordan covers a draft like nobody. He has a separate YouTube channel that covers a draft, man. He gets in on this stuff, man. He knows a lot of stuff. And
I hadn't heard of any of those people you just mentioned. I had no clue who they are. Absolutely zero clue.
Ruka Ororo was drafted in like early second round. They traded up for him. So
there you go.
Like usually with me, I have my hot takes on who the Jaguars should draft in like the first round, but after that, I'm like, I'll read about it when we draft. But yeah.
So tell me about hunting and fishing. Why?
I'm not a hunter or a fisher. I don't know. I was more embarrassed that I had no clue who you were talking about. I think that was more of it.
Well, that's why I got Jordan over here. Okay, Jordan.
I think a lot of people will know some of those names.
So now Jordan's gonna be awesome when we do previews this year because he's gonna know all these guys on the other team. I'll be like, yes, I agree.
Yeah,
that guy's good. But
it'll be better when it's not backups. But yeah. For sure.
100%. Well, guys, it's a good show. Running a little bit over, so appreciate these guys for being here. First of all, what do you guys have coming up on your YouTube channel? We'll start with Jordan.
Well, I will do my best to do the defensive part of my 53-man roster prediction tomorrow morning. I'm not really excited about it because, like I've told you all tonight, I really don't know. I think it's much less cut and dry than the offensive side of the ball.
Definitely.
And what else? We'll preview the Falcons game, like full preview, talk about everything I'm looking for tomorrow afternoon as well. And then you're going to have 53-man roster cuts on Tuesday. That'll be the big thing. Obviously, recapping what happens in the Falcons game as well. So there's definitely some stuff coming down the pike, and it's going to be definitely a busy few days here, Jen Jack.
Let's hear it from you, Jason. What you got coming up?
We're back on our Tuesdays and Fridays live shows. So if you want some entertainment, come in the Jags United show. We talk Jags mostly, and then maybe some other side tangents. I think last week we talked about fast food, and we taled about our favorite fast food restaurants. But hey, that's what we do sometimes. So Tuesdays and Fridays.
What's number one?
No, number one's Chick-fil-A, obviously. And the debate was more of, it wasn't really ranking. It was just more like how bad Wendy's sucks. That's kind of where it all started. So like, that's just kind of, but that's just what
it's
we do.
Interesting. Like these fast food places, they really go up and down in
That's
power
true.
rankings. Like
That's
there was a time where Wendy's was pretty good, but right now, like I feel like I get a burger and it's like cold and it's just, fries or
it tastes like
my Wendy's
food.
comes correct.
I don't know. I feel like Chick-fil-A is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So I gotta I feel like you always know where you're getting from there. Wendy's, for me, obviously it also depends on where your Wendy's is.
That's true.
It's it's definitely
is Wendy's behind McDonald's and Burger King?
Oh yeah. I can't think of a fast food above Wendy's. I can't think of one above.
Well, you also got to throw in the price value also, because I found now Chick-fil-A is cheaper than McDonald's. You know what I mean? I think that also needs to be.
I mean,
someone
Chick-fil-A is cheaper than McDonald's.
I can legit get like a Chick-fil-A sandwich and a fry for like $6-7. At McDonald's, like you get a burger and a fry. It's less food and it's about the same, maybe even more. I don't go to McDonald's that much, but I've noticed like I'll go to McDonald's and be like, damn, I just spent like $20 here.
Yeah. Well,
I will say
you go to Chick-fil-A a lot.
I mean, Taco Bell is probably 1B. I will say Taco Bell is pretty up there. So
yeah,
and that Popeyes chicken sandwich slaps.
Yeah,
it does. There's no Popeyes near me, but whenever I did catch it, it's pretty good.
You may have to take your life in your own hands when you go to a Popeyes, but the food there.
I get it delivered, man. I'm not going to Popeyes. They don't want you there.
Yeah,
they do not.
The inside is somehow like closed at 8 p.m., but they have a long drive-through. Yeah, it's not usually a good experience, but. With that said,
Rayshawn says Culver's is killing it. Culver's is good.
I drove by a Culver today, and I've been hearing a lot. I know Jacksonville's got a lot of hype. There's not that many in Orlando, but if I wasn't busy, I probably would have stopped by there. I gotta check them out on Rayshawn's recommendation. But with that said, I know for myself, to plug myself, I'll be live on Friday night for the Jaguars Falcons game. Always enjoy doing that, doing some live play-by-play, getting emotional and irrational with everybody. So that's always a good time. And also, guys, like I said, this stream is, of course, powered by BetUS. 125% deposit bonus down below. Appreciate them for sponsoring this. And with all that said, I got Jordan and Jason links. They're both down below. Go, please subscribe to their YouTube channels. They're taking time out of their, Wednesdays to come over here and kind of give you guys a really good show. So to give them support for coming over here, definitely go click on their links and go subscribe to them. And if there's only 3 YouTubers that you guys watch, guys, we'll keep you guys covered, through whatever you want, whether you want full breakdowns or your daily updates or your passionate fan game live streams. We got you guys covered, okay? We all got our own niches out here. So with all that said, can't wait for this regular season to get started. Thanks for Jordan and Jason for joining me, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Dalton. Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun. This is fun for me.
Don't make me cry on camera. I got in. Later, guys.